Here we go. Welcome, everybody. What's happening? This is your host, Mr. Travis. Episode 75 of Mercury's Cast. Coming at you live and direct.
Travis.
Episode
75 of Americ. Coming at.
There we go. You good over there? You can hear?
Yep. Perfect.
So, I am joined by returning guests Dusty Angel and Matt Nagy, always bringing that heat. How's it going, gentlemen? I asked you both at the same time in hopes that you guys could just start trying to talk over each other. But anyways, so first things first, thoughts and positive vibes go out to all the people affected by the fires in California right now. It's pretty drastic, and there's a lot of people up there in the Sonoma and in the Santa Rosa and then in the Anaheim Hills area. I hope there was no homes or anything damaged like that. There's a lot of shit going on. Another thing would be I've been listening to a lot of stuff about Ralphie May, who passed last Friday. And if you're a stand-up comedian, comic fan, you probably heard of him. By all accounts, a very nice guy, and I was a fan of him on podcasts and some of his stand-up comedy. So I just wanted to say, give him a tribute. And but you can't think about him without thinking about how overweight he was, and God damn it, we could all take a little bit better care of ourselves. I for sure could, as I take a swig of my OE. Anyways, so we're missing a third party here. Jordan Alford, who was supposed to come on for the last Race Relations podcast, has gone MIA again, and I'm sure there's a good reason for it. At least he might think there's a good reason for it. I don't think so, because I messaged him about an hour ago, and he said he would be on, and he's not. And we're supposed to have talk about race relations. He wanted this one. He wanted to come on with us, and now he's not here. So I guess we are left to just fend for ourselves here. He actually kind of called out Arnold Sulivan, a.k.a. Dusty Angel, when he heard the last one that he was supposed to be on. He wanted it, and then now he's not here again. So I don't know what to make of it.
Yeah.
It's disappointing.
Whatever. A little disappointed.
Yeah. He may jump in. Who knows? He may jump in. But at any rate, let's just dive right into it. The NFL ratings were down, and then now it's time for the owners to really. The owners are really starting to feel the burn of these boycotts that are going on. Let me ask you, Dusty. You kind of called this one, didn't you?
I'm a huge football fan. I have been for years. Been a big Raider fan, which I mentioned on the last show. When I saw Marshawn Lynch, who plays for the Raiders, a few weeks back, take a knee, I said, that's it. I'm done. I'm personally protesting the NFL this year. I didn't know anything about anyone else doing it, who was going to do it, who was going to think I'm crazy, whatever. I just decided personally that, you know what, I'm done. Because I was ready. I was like, let's watch football. And you watch football to escape this stuff. And when I saw that, it immediately took me back to the real world. And I was like, I'm turned off. It was like a girl in bed. You do the wrong thing. One little thing will turn her off. And me as a football fan, I was turned off. So, yeah, for the past few weeks, I decided not to watch football. I have not watched football since, and I will not watch football for the whole year. And, yes, Travis, according to ratings, I'm not the only one. I think they're down, 13% this week?
Right. Okay, but two-parter. So how much of a football fan, a Raider fan, were you before that? And then,
I fell in love with football, and this has nothing to do with the Raiders. In 1989, when I watched the San Francisco Giants, why do I always say the Giants? It's baseball. San Francisco 49ers play the Cincinnati Bengals in the Super Bowl. Once I saw the game and I kind of understood it, I was hooked from there. Living in Los Angeles at that time, the Raiders were the team to root for. So right off the bat, I was a Raider fan. Bo Jackson, Marcus Allen, all of those guys. Plunkett, I was a huge fan. I played football for 8 years personally, 4 years of Pop Warner, 4 years of high school. Started, loved the game, watched up until this year. So I was your typical fan.
Okay, cool. Matt, what about you? NFL guy at all?
I haven't been an NFL guy at all, and I haven't been interested in the sport simply because my family wasn't really big into sports. We did a lot more outdoor activities that included just hiking and national forest stuff and going out into just camp. So for us, we had a different choice for outdoor activities, and that's just how it is. I'll watch the NFL games every once in a while if it's at, say, a party or if it's at the bar. But other than that, I don't follow it very closely now.
Okay, fair enough. And for me, I agreed that the players should have a right to protest. They should have that right, and it doesn't bother me that they do it. I just thought it was a dumb move for Kaepernick to do it, especially when he did it, because he was kind of.
It doesn't bother you when they do it?
It doesn't bother me. I mean,
okay.
I would rather them not. It's a little. I think it is disrespectful, but it's not like it doesn't make me angry. I just think it's a dumb PR move. I think it's dumb.
Yeah, it doesn't make me angry either. I just think it's dumb. So.
Yeah, especially it brings your stock down. And then and the other two-parter was like, yeah, but we watch football to escape the daily grind of what is now politics, which it's everywhere. You can't get away from it anymore. So I think that football and sports, and for me, MMA. MMA is my big sport, and when the UFC is on, guess what? There is nothing else that I'm thinking about except for, my predictions on. I do a lot of MMA stuff, but it's an escape. Just like watching a movie is an escape, and even in the movies now, they've got these subtle political stuff going on. Like with Avatar, and I mean, you could just go down the list. There's these subtle political little jabs here and there, and it's like we just can't get away from it anymore, and it's dumb. I think it's a dumb move.
I personally can't watch SNL, and once again, I was a huge SNL fan for the past 30 years since I first saw Eddie Murphy when I was like 7 years old back in the early 80s. I followed them all the way through the Wayne's World years and all the way through I've always followed SNL, but literally now every show they're throwing their jabs in there, and it's become so political, and it's not even funny anymore. It's more cringy, dude. I can't even watch SNL anymore. It's a show that I fucking loved. Not to mention there hasn't been a funny black guy on there since 1993.
Yes, that's true. Plus, they also are totally avoiding the, Harvey Weinstein rape case. They're totally avoiding that, instead opting for bashing on Trump more. So
it's Jewish.
Yeah,
everyone knows that.
Well, exactly.
At any rate, so a big topic was going to be Black Lives Matter.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's going to be kind of hard to navigate these waters now. But
I've got an idea, though. I've got an idea. I mean, we all have seen, the media portray Black Lives Matter just as what was it? The last time I was on, what was that gentleman's name? The last guy that we had on?
Carl.
Yeah, Carl. He was he admitted something that was actually pretty telling as well. He said that the media distorts whatever we see, right? Okay, well, I actually agree with that. And so I just decided to go straight to the one website that kind of gives a cemented point-by-point policy of Black Lives Matter, even if it's just named the Movement for Black Lives. Looks like it actually condenses a lot of what they've said repeatedly at their own protests, at their own rallies. So, I mean, they've got posters, really easy bullet points, like end the war on black people, reparations, divest, invest, economic justice, community control, and political power. I figure if we just go down this list, we could just I'll just literally say it, and then Travis, you just come up with a good question for it, because this is stuff that obviously we're on our own for having to try to figure out what would have been debated here, but I figured this would at least be a good starting point to talk about it. So that first one is just, what were you gonna say?
That's a good idea.
Yeah, I think that's really the only way to continue on
by
this,
the
because I
way,
do want to talk about it.
For all our listeners, Matthew has just agreed to come on every single Monday from here on out, so you can look forward to hearing.
Gotcha.
Gotcha. That's good.
You can hear more of Matthew Nagy on Mercury's Cast every single Tuesday coming out from here forward to the end of eternity. I'm just kidding, but no, we're going to be
good. No, that's good.
I love me some Matt. So let's do that. I like that idea. Sure.
Okay. So the first one that they list here, you guys can find this on the M4BL, literally M as the letter, 4 is the number, BL.org, and they've got all of this information here, policies, their points, everything. And this one in particular I found under downloads, and it's just a poster, and it says a vision for Black lives, policy demands for Black power, freedom, and justice. And they've got these little symbols, like it's got 2 black hands ripping apart chains, and it says, end the war on Black people. We demand an end to the war against Black people. Since this country's inception, there have been named and unnamed wars on our communities. We demand an end to the criminalization, incarceration, and killing of our people. Now, I'm just going to go off of what their poster says right here. Going through point by point their platform, they actually have quite a detailed listing here. But if I were to just read that, honestly, as a white guy, I just kind of sit there like, okay, well, do they have any validity to that? I'd probably go to their website and figure it out. But for what I know personally, with the research I've done, it's total shit.
This is scary because we're raising a new generation, because Black parents are indoctrinating this stuff into their kids. We're raising a new generation of kids who think there's a target on their back, who think that when they walk out, white police are out to kill them and they want to kill them. This is not the right message to spread to these young children, because this is not the truth. This is so false. It's ridiculous. Cops do not wake up in the morning and say, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go target a bunch of Black guys. No, it's not the case. Statistics show this. If people would actually fucking go read the statistics, it shows that this is not the case. Police are not targeting Black people. Black people are not dying by police at any more number of a rate than they are white people. Are they getting shot and apprehended by police more? Yes, because they're in more proximity of the police. Why are they in proximity to the police? Because they're committing most of the crime.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Actually, I did a little bit of show prep for this too. I went ahead and found a whole bunch of statistics that I used to cite a lot, but I just never wrote down because I just did it on the one-time Facebook rant, you know. The one paper that I think you're actually talking about is from the National Bureau of Economic Research, an empirical analysis of racial differences in police use of force. And I went through it briefly, and I took a look through there, and there's sort of a strange kind of a situation here. They also say that there really isn't much more racism as for like what is chosen by the cops. Like, they don't choose to be more racist on a particular, you know, race or not. No, what they are showing though is that one of these cases, that the less violent use of force, such as like pushing or holding down, is used more often, is recorded and reported by police more often with Black people. But here's one thing that they do admit in the research here, is that Blacks are 23.8% less likely to be shot by police relative to whites. Hispanics are 8.5% less likely to be shot, but the coefficient is statistically insignificant. So oh, hey, Jordan's here. Wonderful. So just to finish up my point, real quick here, that study, like I said, the name of it is An Empirical Analysis of Racial Differences in Police Use of Force by Roland G. Fryer Jr. And you guys can find that by just Googling it, or just going to to find that on. Yeah, just search engine is going to be easier. I'm not going to list off the entire website again.
Dusty,
It'd be
you
ridiculous.
brought up something that was interesting to me. So if black kids are being told by their parents to that they're being targeted by cops, that cops are out there to shoot them, then why aren't they more submissive when it comes to time to being detained? Why are they so aggressively resisting arrest, and which ends up most of the time in a dead, black kid or whatever?
That's a good question. From what I'm looking at in this study, but even if we were to just look at like, okay, if we were in the situation and we're told that cops, no matter what, are going to target you and they will be violent with you, there's not much benefit to submitting to an arrest if you know you're going to get beat up anyways. So in their minds, there's really no difference in the reaction of police if you fight or if you don't fight. So fight it is. That's what it appears to be anyways, if you're looking at it purely from a logical standpoint.
I guess that's a logical answer.
Yeah.
I think Jordan joined the call.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's here. He's not here, though.
That I did.
Oh, there he is. What's up, my man?
Nothing much. My apologies for being a little late. As black guys.
All right, so I'm glad you're here. That makes me happy. It's good to see you again. Me and Jordan, we knew each other as kids. I don't know if we knew it directly, but we hang out in the same kind of circles, I guess. Maybe you knew my brother a little bit better than you knew me. Football. Speaking of football, we both played for the Cerritos Hornets, which now they're the Cerritos Steelers, which is, I don't like that. I like the Hornets better. What do you think about, and I'll ask you the same question that I asked Carl on the last podcast. Why do you think that we are so divided racially and politically as a nation? What would be the cause? Is there a root cause that we could point our finger to say, yeah, this is kind of why this is going on?
I mean, I don't know how you boil it down to one thing. I mean, it's a perfect storm of numerous things that gets to where we are. The one of the biggest reasons I think that we're divided today is that we either disagree on the priority of issues and or we disagree on the means on how those issues are brought to the forefront of everyone's mind, right? So everyone may get upset about social injustice. They'll agree that social injustice is a problem, but in return they'll say, well, you shouldn't be focusing on that. You should be focusing on education. And it's like, well, yeah, that's true. Education, I would put it as the number one priority. But just because it's the fourth ranked thing on the priority list doesn't mean that it's not better than doing nothing. And then there's the other aspect of where, hey, we agree with you. We're just not going to agree with the mode of protest that you're doing. So in the meantime, instead of ever discussing the issue that we do agree on, we'll waste time discussing issues that don't actually matter at all.
Yeah, Travis, if I may, can we get right into it? Because apparently Jordan disagreed with some stuff I said on the last show, so we might as well get to that. We've already been kind of chit-chatting for 30 minutes now. I was just curious, what did you disagree with that I said on the last show, Jordan?
Well, you said something along the lines when by the time I had to turn it off was you said something along the lines if you don't want to get in trouble for selling crack, don't sell crack.
Yep.
I thought that was possibly the dumbest comment ever.
Yeah. See, here's the deal.
Hold on though. Have you ever seen the movie Tombstone? Right.
No.
I'm here, Huckleberry.
Yeah.
Oh,
no, I don't think I have. No.
Val Kilmer.
Classic.
Yeah,
Yeah, come on. So anyway, the point of one scene was, you know, a fight was going to go down. Wyatt Earp was smacking this guy around, and he asked the guy at a certain point, "Are you going to do something, or are you just going to sit there and bleed?" And when you say, like, you know, if you don't want to get in trouble for crack, then don't sell crack, then that's like saying just sit there and bleed. Some kids
Wait,
and
what-
some
you're-
people in some environments.
Whoa.
Hold on.
Whoa.
Some people and some are being born into environments where that is their option. That is the way that they stop the bleeding for them or for their families. So to say that, you know, that if you don't want that to happen, then don't do that. That's just, I mean, that's just like stupid.
Okay. Hey, Jordan, I grew up in the same neighborhood. I grew up in Compton, Long Beach, Bell Gardens, which is the number 10 worst city in.
Why start
Hold
off
on,
with
real
that?
quick. Let me.
No, I'm asking why start off with that, because where you grow up doesn't have anything to do with the type of person that you are. If you weren't raised bleeding, right? Like if you weren't raised bleeding, when you say that, hey, I wasn't selling crack because I didn't want to get in trouble for selling crack, that's just because you weren't built to do something like that. And in a lot of times, that means that you just weren't put in that environment that crushed you to being forced to do that, right? It's not something that you come out of the womb like, hey, I'm an avid drug dealer. Like there are conditions that push you to that situation.
Can I rebut that? Good. Can I go?
Yeah. Just don't tell me where you're from, because that doesn't matter. It's like, man, I'm
Cool.
from Compton, so I know all about gangbanging.
You're saying that because I'm from a certain place, because I grew up in certain circumstances, I grew up with no father, I grew up in drug-infested neighborhoods.
Again.
Yes.
Hold on, I'm just saying.
That these people grew up in. Why didn't I go that route, Jordan? Why didn't I go that route?
And I'm saying
I'm saying I have everything. No father around for 13. Jordan, I grew up in the same neighborhoods, Compton. It doesn't get any worse than that. Come on, dude. Stop blaming the fact that somebody grew up in a certain neighborhood means that, oh, they gotta automatically sell drugs. You're putting black people under because of that.
Well, this is what this is what I love. Hold on, this is what I love about these conversations.
Talking, because you got 3 minutes. Give me 3 minutes, okay? You said
no, because I want you to quote.
If you're gonna talk over me, you might as well stop now, because I gave you 3 minutes.
I just want you to quote me.
Like a typical black dude.
Correctly. Just quote me correctly.
Stop. In this now. I'm not going to talk over somebody. I'll discuss with you, but I'm not going to talk.
Right.
Over.
So let's discuss.
All right.
So let's discuss
right now. Somebody talk over me. Do you want to discuss?
Repeat what I said.
I'm not going to talk over this guy. He's just been over me. I gave him 3 minutes respectively. He can't even give me 30 seconds.
I'm saying just repeat what I said. Don't say what I said. Like repeat what I said. It's recorded.
Later. I'm going to talk over somebody.
Hey, let him talk. He let you talk. I mean, I think that.
Hey, no. I'm saying that you can't start your conversation off.
He can say whatever.
Travis.
Say whatever he wants to say. You can't say that. You can't say that because that's wrong.
Your argument to start off by saying that I was born in the same environment as these guys. Hold on. Is that I'm
for your response?
You're still saying
because he didn't interrupt you. So pigeonhole that you have a problem with the way that he responded when it's time for you to talk.
Let me ask you something. Did I repeat exactly what he said?
I don't know.
I did. I quoted what he said in the last podcast. I quoted verbatim. I never once went off on a tangent to say what. Hold on.
Talk. I mean,
no, because he started off by saying. Travis,
two people can talk at the same time.
Travis, he started off by saying that these people are from the same environment that I'm from. How does he know what environment I'm talking about? I started off by telling him, don't tell me you're from Compton, because that has nothing to do with it.
That most people that sell crack live in poor neighborhoods or live in the hood. Can it be assumed that?
Yeah.
Or can it not be assumed?
What does that have to do with the type of person you are? Like I stated,
it gives credence. It gives credence to what he's seen in his life. He can actually say it instead of some guy that grows up in an all-white neighborhood in a really rich, wealthy area. You would have said the same thing to a guy like that and saying, you don't know anything about where I come from. Well, guess what? Dusty just gave that to you. He knows where you're coming from. He knows where
No,
those people are coming from. It gives credence. Nope,
I'm
stop.
on,
It
but
gives
hold on,
credence.
hold on,
And
hold
you
on.
didn't let him finish his talk. You didn't let him finish his thought at all. Let him finish his thought.
The same thing that the same thing that you guys are saying is stating that you already know where these people are from. And what I'm saying is that it's not the environment. The environment is coming from a condition which is like systematic and all of that. When he says that you're not selling crack because you don't want to get in trouble for selling crack, then don't sell crack. I'm saying that there are other people that are forced into that. That has nothing to do with the single dad and being from Compton, because there's a bunch of people from Compton who are very highly educated and don't have an idea of the gang life. That doesn't mean anything.
Someone held a gun to their head and say, "You need to sell crack, or else I'm going to kill you."
No, of course not.
Into it.
No, of course not.
Then they have a choice.
Yes, they do have a choice. Everyone has a choice.
They don't have a choice. You said they're forced into that choice. You just said they're forced into that choice.
They're forced into that choice, right? Like that decision is made for them. When they're coming up, they don't have the same advantages that everyone else has. I'm able to speak from it because, unlike dude, I know the 1%ers and I know the guys that are from the bottom. I'm not speaking and trying to cast aspersions on guys that are from a common city as me.
But he just said he comes from that area and he knows those people too. So how can you say you know those people when you just discredited him saying that? You can't make that claim.
You're saying that there's a place like Compton itself. Let's just say the city of Compton, right? Like, because you're from Compton, then that makes you hood. That does not make you hood. That doesn't give you a pass to speak about ghettos across the country. It doesn't.
So then how are we supposed to trust you?
I've actually lived in different places around the country. I don't know how many years any of you guys have spent outside of the places that you were birthed. We can start.
But you just said it doesn't matter where you live. You just said that.
No.
Said it doesn't matter where you.
It doesn't matter where you have lived, right? Like in terms of if you were born in Cerritos, that's fine and dandy. If you were born in Compton, that's fine and dandy. But if you've never seen the opposite of that, if you lived on the West Coast your whole life, but you've never been to the East Coast, or if you've never been to the South, how can you speak intelligently about the national issues that we have? You're going to talk about your community issues.
Well, all right. This conversation started from crack, which is kind of predominantly a West Coast drug, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
In the South, they do different shit in the South. And this whole conversation started from him saying that he lived in Long Beach, and then that got you excited to say, or he lived in Long Beach and Compton.
What does that have to do with it? That's what I don't understand. Like, why is everyone like, hey man, well, I know what it's like to be from the bottom. I was from Compton. I'm from Long Beach, and I had a single dad. Does that make sense?
Like, yeah, it does, because if he was speaking from a guy being, okay, I've got two parents, both of them were earning $100,000 a year. I don't know what you would have said, but I'm pretty sure it would have been, you don't know what it's like, because you just said, I've lived in different places. That gives me credit to be able to speak on this matter, but you didn't give him any credit because of where he lived. So that's a double standard, dude.
I don't understand how it's a double standard if you've lived in one place. Like, you were born and raised. How can you have a world view and you've only lived in one city?
So I've seen you use this argument before, where it's impossible to figure out what it might be like to live in the Midwest or the flyover states or in a cold Michigan. I mean, is it really? Can we don't have the capacity to understand or visualize or to try and predict what it might be like living somewhere?
Not at all. You've made comments on Facebook that said that you have never been around or met a racist white person. You said that, and I'm saying that
I've never heard a white person call a black dude the N-word.
You've never lived in the South. Is it safe to say that?
No, I've never lived in the South.
Right. So it's safe to say that. So for someone who has lived in Southern California their whole life, it's not unfathomable to be like, hey man, I've never heard a white guy call a black guy the N-word. Well, yeah, because
so you're saying you have to seek out racism. So you're saying you have to seek out racism.
No, I'm saying you have to seek out stuff out of your comfort zone, out of the places that you're born and that you've seen your whole life. You can't expect to relate to somebody if you've never seen where they're from before.
Okay. So
That's my point. That's my point.
It's kind of a moot
I'm
point. It really has no weight one way or the other. The whole travel abroad thing that you keep bringing up, it's like, okay, yeah, it's probably more racist in the South than it is in LA, obviously, because of the LA is filled with so many different kinds of people. And is the South filled with just a bunch of racist white dudes? Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that racism has to be it's less cloaked in the South.
okay.
Oh, okay. So this goes back to the to what you
Like,
about people that are white that have like racist thoughts and they don't really post or say anything, but they think a lot of racist stuff. Is that where this is going?
what do you mean?
Like to
No, I'm saying that there are still places in the South where, like, when if we're to walk in, or we're driving from Virginia down to Florida, there are places that are like, hey man, like, this isn't really the place for you. Like, you guys should just keep going.
and then vice versa. Is there some places in LA that if I
No,
started walking down the
no. Like,
as a
you
white
like
person, I wouldn't.
that classic notion about, well, if a white guy is walking down the streets in Watts, you're gonna get robbed if you look wealthy, no matter where you're at. But you're
So
not gonna get robbed in Watts because you're a white guy. In South Carolina, you'll get lynched because you're a black dude, whether you're wealthy or not.
they'll lynch you. I mean, does that happen anymore?
Are you kidding me? Are you
People get
I
kidding
mean,
me?
could you show us where the statistics are on that? Yeah, that'd be really nice to know.
Hey, this is what I'm saying, is that you realize that, like, in the 30s, 40s, there were like, well-to-do, fair-minded, and fair-thinking white folks, and
Okay.
they would say similar things, right? Like, blacks would be like, yo man, you can't go down there because this and happen. And there would still be the same fair-minded white folks that would be like, yo man, well, you got to show me pictures, like, where actually does this happen? Like,
So I'm
you
supposed to
really,
believe you?
right? That's what I'm saying. So apparently, right, like, these are just myths that blacks come up with over generations and generations. Like, uncles and aunts and mothers and fathers, they just disappear. And when the blacks were like, yo, they came and snatched him out of here, you were just like, yeah, that's just like the sheriff, though. He wouldn't do that.
I don't know if you noticed this, but there is like an international audience for this. There are people that don't know anything about American history, and that's why I'm literally saying, could you show us what you're talking about? The statistics,
Yeah, like,
something that would actually show us what
I
you're
mean,
talking about.
I'm gonna
Say-
hear.
You mean like just pictures and stuff? Like, what do you mean?
No,
No, like
I don't
how often
understand.
did it happen? How often did it happen?
I mean, I just like the stories themselves. Like, it runs rampant. Like, I don't understand like what like what you guys mean. This kind of stuff is funny to me when it's like, yo, when does it happen? It's like, when does it not happen?
Well, it's not happening right now because I haven't seen any news reports of showing a actual black guy being lynched in my lifetime. So I'd
Word.
like
So
to know.
you so
all over it.
hold
The
on. So
media
you
all
okay.
over it.
So you guys have, in our lifetime, have never heard about a black dude being chained to the back of a pickup truck and being drugged for miles until his body like fell apart?
But no, you
That's
said
not
that
lynching.
it happens every
Oh,
day.
no,
Did
no,
you
no,
tell
no,
me
no,
lynching? You said
no.
lynching. You said lynching.
Okay.
You said lynching.
I apologize. I apologize. Let me apologize for the black community as well, because I think that sometimes we say stuff like lynching or hanging, and we really just mean hate crimes. It doesn't have to
Okay.
be a specific hanging of a person, because shooting somebody or flogging somebody, decapitating somebody, running someone over, it's all the same to us.
Okay.
There
Well, then
wasn't a difference.
how often does that happen then? Could you show me something to see that?
That's what I'm saying. Like, now you're talking about intent, though. And that's just going to have to
What?
be like, you're talking about intent. Because if I'm like, hey, that white guy shot that black guy, you're going to be like, yeah, but he did it because he didn't like him. It's not because he's racist.
No, I'm literally asking you, could you show me the statistics of how often it happens? I want to know.
The statistics of what? Because what
Often
of like black
it
people
happens.
dying?
How often black people die at the hands of white people? I don't even care if you pin hate crime onto it. I just want to know if there's ever any statistics that you can show me of what describes what you're talking about.
That's what that's like like how often do dogs crap a day? Like I don't like it happens all the time. So why do
So
we
you've
need a
got
statistic for
fucking nothing. That's what you're saying. You've got nothing to actually show how often it happens.
that? So it never happens, right? You're
I
saying
never said it
never
didn't
happens.
happen. I said you've got nothing to show how often it happens.
I'm saying it doesn't make a difference to me whether it's
Yes, it
one or
does.
whether
Yes,
it's
it does.
1,000. Why?
Yes, it does. It does totally matter. Because the difference is that I've never lynched anybody, and you're trying to say somebody in my past has lynched somebody as black. I'd like to know how often it happens, because that's where this conversation is going to go down. And I'd like to know, real quick, before you interrupt me again, I'd like to know where you have these statistics, if you can prove it. And if you just got stories, yeah, we can agree. It's happened. But I wanted to know how often it happens. That's all I want.
I want to know, why does that matter to you?
Because it does.
I
So
would say
like
the number does matter. If it's 1 compared to 1,000.
Yeah.
and I'm saying that, what are you guys referring to? Because these things like it's not like someone is hung in like, a forest, something like that, or goes missing and then later on like that's reported and that number is calculated. That would
That person goes missing and was actually a victim of a hate crime.
and that's what
How
I'm
do you
saying,
know that?
because these families have shared these stories forever.
Okay, there's stories. I could share stories too, but what is the
Right,
one
and
thing that we can all commonly share is, does it happen and how often does it happen?
Who's recording the
Okay,
facts
that's what I'm asking.
who's recording the facts that you're talking about? You're talking about the St. Louis police departments? Are we talking about police
Okay,
departments
so
that we
you're
know
saying that
are
we
racist?
can't trust the statistics. You can't trust the statistics. That's what you're saying?
Correct.
Even from the FBI?
So-
20% of domestic violence goes unreported. How do you know it?
How do you know? How do you know that it's 20% if it's not been recorded?
No, that's my point. That is, how do you know?
How
it's
can you
20%?
say it's 20%? How
No,
can you
I'm
say it's
saying
20%?
that's what people will say. They'll say that 20% of da 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 goes unreported. How do you know that if they weren't reported? Right?
Okay,
So how do you
so-
know what your statistics are that are true when we know that things go unreported?
Oh
If
my
I'm
God.
saying that these things are inherently something that's unreported, or why are you asking for the statistics that we know would not reflect what's going on?
So all of the statistics, all of the criminality, everything that's actually been researched, everything is totally thrown out because you can't trust it. That's what you're saying.
In that reference, yeah, because that's like the most difficult like one to find. Right?
Okay,
Like
so what statistics are you okay with? What can I go look up?
like name them?
Name them. I
Yeah,
asked
like
you how often
what
lynchings, by
statistics?
your definition, happen.
That's what I'm saying. How do you know about lynchings if the lynchings aren't reported?
Oh my God.
You
How do
really
you how do you know? Like how do you know? Like
Well,
that's the dumbest thing.
are happening?
Hey, if
What kind of inside source do you have, Mr. Jordan? What kind of inside source?
I'm saying I have stories personally from branches of my family of where there's been like lynchings, there's been multiple police brutality situations and everything, and like I mean, my family, my family's like well-to-doers. You know what I mean? Like they've now transitioned to that 1%. So in terms of like criminal activity and all that, it's never been the case. But they have these stories. We had my grandfather has these stories of like losing his brother to lynch mobs. Like
Okay.
this isn't something that like fantasy happens. Like, have you guys like ever done like the you hear like a ask a black friend, right? Go ask a black friend, like, when does the black guy die in the movie? Do you guys know when the black guy dies in the movie?
No,
It used to
because
be
I don't care.
What'd you say, Travis?
It used to be first.
It used to be first, but he's not first anymore, right? Like usually
Right.
he's making it until like the final four, you know what I'm saying? And if he's a star, he'll make it like, maybe till the end. But these are like just common things that until you actually look for it honestly yourself,
But
you won't know it because they're not reported.
That's not real life, though. We're talking about cinema. We're talking about movies.
No, I'm just talking about I'm talking about
people
black
being hung from trees. That hasn't happened in my lifetime. Because if it did, it would have been all over CNN and MSNBC. Right. They would have gobbled that shit up like fucking pancakes.
Yep.
That's
sorry.
Ridiculous.
How is that ridiculous? You see how often? No. You see how much time is devoted on a black guy getting shot by a cop? Do you not see how often that's like absolutely blown out of proportion? You don't see that.
No.
Wow.
You think it's blown out of proportion?
Riots, Baltimore riots. I mean, come on, dude. Are you serious? Like all of those riots are fermented because of the media. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. But you guys are still talking about the stuff that happens so blatantly out in public that is unable to hide. Like you're unable to hide it. Do you know how many of these things, like these deaths, have happened? And the only reason why we even know about it is because someone random caught it on camera. People like in our communities have been talking about these situations forever. And it wasn't even believed that he didn't even get shot by the cop. But now we have the camera and it's like, oh, well, he was acting up. He should have got shot by the cop.
Okay, then what about Trayvon Martin? What about Mike Brown? All of these guys, the only recordings that we had of them for like Mike Brown, for instance, was him strong arm robbing a fucking convenience store.
I mean, I'm not
video recording.
I'm not trying to get into the particulars of like, you know, each individual case, you know, kind of like Colin Kaepernick.
Let's switch gears here.
Hold on, real quick, Travis, real quick. All just kind of like Colin Kaepernick. I feel like Colin Kaepernick is maybe a top 20, top 25 quarterback or so in the league. Is not he's not good enough for me to care enough about his job in the NFL because he's not an exemplary quarterback in order for me to get out there on a stand for him.
Okay, right? But do they record his stats still?
Well, his stats we've all seen, so you can't deny it. It happens in front of all of us.
Right.
So you can't deny the stats. No, you
right.
can't. You can't deny the stats because it happens in front of us. There's accountability. There is an accountability in the systems that we're talking about.
Okay, so I have a quick question. This sounds like you're just saying that it's absolute, and I want to know: is there an acceptable percentage of crimes that go unreported that you would finally look at statistics and say, "Yeah, I can trust these statistics"?
Like, it's not fair to compare robbery statistics versus, you know, when we're talking about specifically white to black and the history of those criminal statistics. It's just not apples to apples because for robbery, it would behoove any department, right? You report the robbery, we're going to keep track of all of this stuff. Right. But when it comes to that, it's like, yo, a lot of that stuff by nature would be swept under the rug.
Why?
Well, I mean, we really have to go into like the history of like police departments and all of that, like where all of that came from.
Oh, that they actually get their money from taxpayers, which means they have to prove that they're doing a job. Right. So that means that if they show.
No. I'm talking about the original police officers. Like
I'm talking about today. You talking about today, or are you going to be going back?
You can't talk about today without talking about going back. How am I going to talk about you without talking about the way you were raised by your parents?
Okay, so we're going to talk about police officers or law enforcement in
the 40s.
What age? The 40s. Just the 40s. We're going to stop there. Why can't we go further back?
Well,
it was because we were dumber. It was 100 years ago.
But my dad was. But my dad was born then. But my dad was born then. It's not fair to be like, hey, let's not count then. Let's not count like his lives and the stories that like I've had to hear and the pain from like uncles and aunts and stuff. It's not fair to be like, let's not count that time. Let's just start now.
In a poor Italian family in Brooklyn. The
difference is, Travis, we kind of got into this a little bit the other day, and the reason why you feel like I drop Molotovs and leave is because I don't have time to write like full essays on like what I'm saying. So it's not like I'm trying to flame and leave. What
Yeah,
I
but
was
then nobody's
saying,
going to trust what you say.
what I was saying, well, no, because I regularly will hit up Travis and say, yo, I want to do the podcast because I'd rather converse it over. I'd rather talk about it. Right. So what I was saying in terms of the white privilege cash points and stuff, you're able to track your ancestry so that you will be able to see either where wealth wasn't attained or where wealth was squandered. You know what I mean? For me, no matter what, after my second or third generation, it's going to end one place. Right. And that's the
Okay.
reason why we can't talk about now. Now, hold on. Now,
the Congo or Nambia is where most of the slaves came from.
Yeah.
no, but I can't track my family though. I can't track.
Yeah, but you wouldn't have tracked them there either
wealth.
because you would have been a slave there too. Like, I don't understand what you're talking about.
How do you know that? How do you know that my
Because
bloodline? How do you know my bloodline wasn't royalty?
If you say that you came from slavery, are you saying you came from slavery?
Like in this country, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Your family would have been slaves in Africa too, bud.
No. See, that's what I'm saying. Like,
yeah, they would have. Yeah.
That's
because you know who enslaved them? You know who enslaved them? They were prisoners of war, bud. They were prisoners of war. Okay? They would have been slaves there too. So you either were going to be a slave here or a slave there. So are you going to talk about something we can actually refer to today? And that's why I've said, can you show me something today?
That is so ridiculous. But regardless of of the ridiculousness, let's still keep it to this country. Right? Because over in Africa, they don't promise home of the brave and the free and all of that stuff. There is no melting pot promises over there at all. So let's just talk about here, right? Because over there, right.
Okay.
Right.
All right. Sure.
Over there, right. Well, it was understood that it was dog eat dog, right? It was a war. We were prisoners of war and all that. There was none of that here. So let's not talk about that here, right? So we can still
so you're free now. Congratulations.
Well, I'm good. I'm not talking about me. My family for the black community is more than likely in the 1%. You know what I mean? So that goes without saying. So I'm not speaking for I'm not speaking for people that are like me. Like the chances are you're not like me. You know,
okay.
like they're
But you're trying to say that your father experienced terrible racism in the past. Yes. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And I literally just said your family, because you said they came from slavery, right?
Yes.
Okay. Had you not been sold to those slavers to be brought over here to the States, your family would literally be still there in those countries. Hold on. You would still be suffering.
You're still wanting to bring up over there. Let's not talk about over there because over there it was war.
Yeah, because you're uncomfortable with that.
No,
you're uncomfortable with that.
I'm saying that regardless of how dumb that sounds, I will give you that point.
The Congo is one of the worst places on planet
Earth right now. You can have that for over there, but like I said, they don't have a constitution declaring that all men are created equal over there. They let it be known. What's the excuse here? I mean,
there's a point there.
Right? So when he says that, you know, you guys would still be slaves, well, that's fine. But here, that's not supposed to be the case from the get-go. So you're already losing the debate.
So,
you're wanting to talk about statistics for today.
Systematic racism and oppression, which still exists in your mind.
In my mind or in real life?
Yeah. Give us examples of actual racism today. Like, you're laughing. A lot of black people would rather be asked this question by somebody that wants to know. Show us, talk to us.
And I'm saying that if you're not able to see the clear differences between the way that blacks are treated.
You cut out.
Sorry, I got a call.
I can let me help you out because I know that the Baltimore Police Department has admitted to targeting black people. There have been cases in the past where people have been denied loans, but that's an old theory because if you can actually prove discrimination based on loans, then you have a huge case against any loan company. And I feel like, Jordan, you're going to have more info on the loan part than me.
But the things that you're talking about are still stuff that can't be tracked. There aren't statistics for that, right? Like, can we agree with this? Can we just, because I'm trying to find somewhere, right? Can we agree with this, that at least at one point in this country, racism existed, right?
Yeah.
Sure.
From the start, I can say that.
There were Ku Klux Klansmen, right?
Yes.
Sure.
Can we agree that the reason why those Ku Klux Klansmen wore the mask and all of that is because they didn't want their everyday lives to be affected by the hateful actions that they were involved in?
Well, I mean, if this was such a white man's paradise, why would they need to hide their faces?
Well, I'm saying, hold on a sec, but you're not answering my question.
I admitted that they're here.
No, I'm saying that they hid their faces because they did not want their everyday lives to be messed up, meaning that their everyday jobs as lawyers, judges, sheriffs, teachers, they didn't want that to be messed up. That's what the
I'm
kids
not an
in
expert on the
Charlottesville found out.
KKK, so I don't know why they have
Okay.
hoods
Gotcha.
on. Clearly, it's got a reason.
Oh.
Maybe you're right. I'll just take your word on that. Let's say that they just wore it to hide their identities. Okay.
So if there was subversive racism then, why would you not think there's subversive racism now?
Because I can't grade it. I mean, there has to be, at least one person in this entire country that is racist, but we don't know how many.
Right. And it's comfortable, right, for those in power to just to be like, yo, we have to keep it the same because there's no way to track this. Like, we don't know.
I mean, there's a lot of ways to track it. I mean, comparing how people are treated to each other.
How many?
It's the actions of people.
How many questionnaires have you ever seen that has asked someone, "Are you racist?"
I don't know.
Can I tell you something else?
People can lie on that. People can lie on that.
No, of course they would lie on that. Of course.
Yeah, so that's why I said you look at their actions. I said you look at their actions, not what they say.
But when they do their actions, you would say that that's not racism unless they like shout N-word, die N-word. You wouldn't say it was racist. You would just say that it was something else. How would you be able to say?
Let me ask you a simple question. Can thoughts be racist?
Thoughts?
Yes.
Like there's a difference between prejudices, right, that are based off of stereotypes that lead into the actions of racism. And I think that everybody has prejudices. It's impossible to avoid. You know, you might not like midgets. It could be like anything that you prejudge someone before meeting them. You become a racist when you start treating individuals based upon their stereotypes. Right? That's when your actions go into it.
Their stereotypes, I mean, they're obviously they bring a negative context to almost everything.
Everybody says that they're negative, but it's because you're trying to say that all black people like chicken. If you were to say like, hey, black people like chicken and shit, so do I, right? No one would really get offense to it, right? But it's like, no, you have to like chicken because you're black. Well, no, that's a racist thing to say. You know what I mean? But if you ask somebody like, yo, man, you like fried chicken?
So is it racist to say that black people are more athletic than white people?
It's a stereotype. If you were to treat like a black kid that you saw and you're like, hey, you should be the next LeBron James. Well, now you're starting to go into racist behavior because you're saying because this kid is black, he has to fit the stereotype.
What if he's good at basketball?
I mean,
but he's good at basketball.
Look like Big Worm. I mean, you look like Big Worm.
Hold on. First off, can we get this out of the way? Like stereotypes, like 99% of the time are true. They're based on data over years and years and years and years. Like it's just what people are able to see as norms from different groups of people, right?
That's a pretty
Well, I
bold
mean, can we
statement.
trust?
99% is a bold statement. There's a lot of stereotypes out there, but I'll take I would say more like 85.
No, I can agree with Jordan on that.
I don't know about 99.
Maybe not the exact number, but yeah, I'd say stereotypes most of the time are true. Yeah.
Right, right.
So, I mean, let's take a real quick look, though. I mean, real
Asian
that we
people
can
are good at math.
observe, right? Look at Olympics. Look at the Olympics. Most of the fastest runners in the world today come from what race?
But there's a difference between African and black.
Well, there's Jamaica.
Well,
and there's
okay.
Kenya. And then
Well, I
there's
mean, let's. Is there a lot of white guys who are real fast these days in the Olympics?
Nah, but again, you're talking about
Nah,
you're talking
right?
you're talking about different genetics.
and then black people
right.
don't like to swim,
Yeah.
and we have Michael Phelps. Ha ha!
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
Now we're on
So-
to something. Now we are on.
the blacks today are, I don't want to say created, but it's almost like created differently than their African cousins, right? The African cousins, you can see that they have elongated, quads and muscles and stuff like that. They tend to be longer, limber, based for distance and like
Depending on the country.
marathons. You know what I
Depending on
mean?
the country.
Yeah.
Well, no,
Okay.
the majority of them that are born and raised there, that's their muscle type. The ones that are African Americans or blacks that are born here, you're talking about, bigger quads. You're talking about larger gluteus maximuses, which just, generate more power and blah, blah, blah.
I know, I totally agree. But there is something that happens when people come to America. I don't know if it's in the water. I don't know if it's in the cow products, but you can take a first generation Mexican, say, who is 5 foot nothing, and then they have a kid who's like 6'1" with broad shoulders and is just absolutely huge. There is something that happens when people come over here. Their genetics change a little bit. They start to widen out, and I can't say how I'm going to put my finger on it, but
unless that 5 foot is marrying like a 6'5" chick.
Right. Yeah. For real. Yeah. Seriously. Yeah.
Man, they'll have two parents from Mexico. The kid's bigger than them by the time they're 10 years old.
Yeah, it's probably something with food or something. I don't know.
Yeah, that might have something to do more with diet or nutrition, but we're not talking about the evolution of man.
No, I've heard a theory behind it that's just coming to me, is that the parents and then their ancestors from Mexico, just had enough food just to probably get by, and they have that hunger gene that's in them already, so they don't really get. I'm not saying they get full, but that hunger gene is always there because their ancestors were always hungry, so they just eat and eat and eat and eat because they were they were kind of food deprived generations going up along the chain. Anyways.
All right. Well, all I was trying to get at with the differences is that we can see that stereotypes do exist, and we can clearly see that when you look at the Olympics, most of the fastest runners are black. I yet to see a black swimmer in the Olympics. Weightlifting as well is usually Asians and white guys, regularly from Russia.
Didn't I believe that the females gold medalist this year was black
For swimming?
Yes, I believe so.
Well, no. For which one? Swimming or gymnasts?
Swimming.
No,
okay, I didn't know that.
I don't think
I'm fairly sure.
I mean, I know that there was gymnasts. I mean, that was pretty clear. I remember that from this last Olympics, but I mean, I don't recall seeing any black swimmers. I'm not trying to say that that's because black.
Yeah, no, I
it's just different bodies. It's just different bodies. That's all.
There was a first.
So.
And do we really need to make a big deal about her being the first black one to win a gold medal in that event? I mean, can't we just say she was?
Sure.
But again, no, it's not. It's just not fair because we haven't had the opportunity long enough to just all of a sudden be like, oh man, well, it's the first American, because all along blacks have always had the opportunity to swim as fast as they possibly could with, all of these fine aquatic instruments. That hasn't always been the case.
What about blacks in Africa? Like they have an ocean around them too.
What does that have? Why? I don't want. Why you keep bringing up Africa?
Because that's where black people come from.
I come from Los Alamitos.
And your family before that?
They were from Oklahoma.
And before that?
Somewhere in Oklahoma starts to get cloudy, and then before
So what
that.
you're saying is you're a Native American here.
What do you mean? I'm a Native American here.
Do you said earlier that you can say that with certainty that you are from slavery, like your family comes from slavery, correct?
No. I'm American.
Okay,
I'm
I get
American.
that.
Yeah,
You're from
I'm
America now because you were born here. Sure, okay. But your ancestral line comes from where?
I would assume Africa, but if you were getting into that, like
There you
all
go.
of us are from Africa.
But here's
No, that's still not true. There's actually studies that are showing that that's not true either. So we can go down that path. But what I'm trying to say
You
is
mean like the Caucasus Mountains? Like, what do
no,
you
I'm
mean?
saying that they're showing that they're actually skeletons older than the skeletons found in Africa in Europe.
Got you.
Okay.
Got you.
Okay.
So
who found them?
there is a difference.
Here's what he's saying. Here's what he's saying is that when people came over here on the slave ships, there was no documentation where they came from or their family lineage. That their history was pretty much erased when they stepped foot here. Their history starts when they get.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I'm not gonna refute that.
It's fine, but I think you can do 23andMe, which is a website where you give a sample of your saliva or your blood, and they can tell you. I don't know how accurate that shit is, or Ancestry.com. I don't know. I'm no expert on it, but I guess you can figure it out in today's world. But up until about a couple years ago, people had no idea where the hell they came from. I know that some of my grandparents came from Italy. I'm not exactly sure where, and then one of the other ones came from, I think, England. So it's all.
Anyways, I keep bringing up the Africa thing because that those people there most closely resemble blacks here in America because genetically they're very similar. I don't know why.
No. They're not genetically similar anymore. Like this.
Here's a good idea. Can you say that your genetic?
Listen. Just let me explain. And the reason why is that because of slavery, right? And it's like it's just like gift and the curse. A guy actually got fired on CBS for saying this in I think the 70s or something like that. Supposed to be a good sports announcer, but he was saying like through slavery. Imagine what happens if you consciously keep breeding LeBron James with Serena Williams. Every day you have a person.
That would make for a good video. I'd watch that video.
Imagine you making an athlete, right? Max weight lift every single day from dusk till dawn.
No, you're talking about eugenics, sir. They already.
No, I'm saying you're starting to completely change the genetics. So we're not the same as our cousins over there anymore. So it's not fair to compare.
You're saying there's enough genetic drift from the time that slaves were brought here from Africa and now today that the Africans, the descendants of Africans here today are genetically how different, and that's what I'm asking, how different can you say you are from Africans right now today?
What are those big facts to everyone?
There's the difference between asking what's the difference between a 3K marathon runner and a 100-meter sprinter. There's just you can't say one person is necessarily more athletic or what have you than the other person, but genetically these are two different athletes now.
Okay, and I can say pretty easily that most of the runners for both sprinting and marathon, they tend to be black. So there's got to be something there. So
there is. The Kenyans run. They have to run 3 miles to go get water. So that's their warm-up as a child. So it makes sense that they're going to have the elongated calves and quad muscles that allow them to stride forever. But they're still genetically far different than Marion Jones, who has a high gluteus maximus and fat thighs.
Okay, so that's why I'm wondering, do you think that the blacks here in America are more similar to which continent of people that they originated from? The Asian, Asian nations, European area, Russia, Africa, South America. What other continent would most resemble where blacks in America came from? Like,
Why?
what would be
Why?
more? What would
I'm saying, why can't I say here?
because you mostly resemble people from Africa. I mostly resemble people from Europe, and
No,
Asians here mostly represent.
that's because you can trace your lineage right back to that place in Europe. You can't just say blindly that you can throw me somewhere in Africa and I'm going to resemble somebody. If you're not talking about my skin, there is no country in Africa that looks like the African Americans here today.
Okay, let's take Snoop Dogg for instance. If you put him into one of the tribes with their outfit, do you really think you'd have a hard time recognizing, the differences? I mean,
If Snoop was white, do you think you'd have a hard time identifying him in Switzerland? It's the same person.
I mean,
All right. I
Makes
feel
no
like
sense.
we're
what are you talking
down a
about?
dusty road here that's not really beneficial at all. And so we probably got like 10 or 15 minutes left. Let's try and close it on something different. I feel like we're chasing.
This is what I'm
We
asking.
go long enough on this.
Do both of you guys agree that there is social injustice or systematic racism, or do you guys feel like it doesn't exist?
For black people?
I'm talking about period.
For
okay, well, if
American,
we're working with absolutes, yes, there will always be some form of racism because that's part of our
I'm
identity.
saying I don't care about racism. I'm talking about systematic racism.
Well, yeah, it's called
Because
affirmative action.
that works for white women, right?
Holy crap! So you're telling me right now that for the Asian people who have to actually score, I think it's somewhere in the range of 150 extra points just to equal the same score of a black person, regardless of background, that isn't somehow favoring black people.
But you said racism. That's not racism.
Yeah. How is it not racism when they're literally separating people and giving other races better scores? Are you kidding me?
All right. So you have two kids and they're growing up. They're the same age, same intellect. You lock one of them in a closet for 3 years and you personally tutor the other kid. When you finally let that other kid out of the closet and then you give him a personal tutor, that's not called reverse racism or systematic racism. That's just called getting the kid caught up with the rest of the class.
well, why was that kid locked in a closet?
That's a bad example, first off.
Well, that's called slavery, Travis.
Slavery.
Like there was a point we weren't allowed to read.
Okay,
right?
so what about blacks in Britain?
What about blacks in Britain?
So
same IQ scores as blacks here. So what's the difference?
But why are you bringing up other countries? None of these other countries talk about land of the free, home of the brave.
Well, I think first off, I need to tell you something right off the bat. If you still believe in equality, you're wrong. Sorry.
I don't believe in equality. I believe in fair.
Okay,
everyone is different.
Okay, so
hold on. So
right?
Gordon, what you were saying was that because the slaves weren't able to read, they were never taught to read. Is that generationally they're a little behind?
Behind, right? Yeah.
Because all right.
No doubt. Right? Like how
even
long, how long
so you said your family's
Leagues,
in the 1% though. You said your family's in the 1%?
How long have the Ivy Leagues been running? Right? They've been open for like centuries, right? My brother who graduated in 2002 from Harvard, he represents the second class of African Americans that go through there. If Obama's kids decide to go to Harvard, that's the first generation of black graduates that will then have their kids be able to go through Harvard. How many white generations have had that?
That's just for my family, none.
But that again, you can track back to where that was either squandered or never gained. I can't do that.
So,
we only have 3 generations to work with, and I'm not trying to say it like against every it's not about equality. It's about fair. If you screw up, if the black community was to screw up over several generations, like if this is my spirit talking, 100 years from now, I don't want to hear shit about none of this other stuff because you've had the time and the generations to wash up whatever stuff was done before. But it's too
Okay, so how
soon
many
right
generations? How many generations do we need to wait to abolish affirmative action?
now. To abolish affirmative action. Again,
Yeah, actually, allow meritocracy to take hold if you want that.
yeah. I'm gonna answer your question. Let me ask you this: If I was to pee in a cup and offer you that cup, you would not drink it. If I was to pour out half of that cup and then fill it up with fresh drinking water, you still would not drink that cup. Now, if I poured it out again, and now I'm asking you, I'm sure you get the gist. I'm asking you, how many generations of that would it take before you'd feel comfortable drinking from that water?
I've heard this
Or
argument.
how many generations? This is again.
Whenever you have to make an
Just tell me
analogy
how many
like that,
generations.
it seems like you
And
don't
will it
really
ever?
have a good enough point
No, because
of such a far off analogy.
no, when you say
Yeah,
how many,
the far off
when you say how
analogy.
many,
It's bullshit.
when you say
That's what it is.
when you say how many generations, it's like, man, until things are based enough on a meritocracy. Like, man, it's hard to say. Like, it's like saying, well, okay, at what point in football would it be based on a meritocracy? Warren Moon wasn't drafted to the NFL because he was a black quarterback. Black quarterbacks weren't being drafted in the NFL. This is just the 70s, early 80s.
Now they're like 70% of the NFL. What's your point?
No, now because the doors were open, and so today I can root for Aaron Rodgers wholeheartedly because I know that Aaron Rodgers is the best quarterback in the world. He's not just the best white quarterback.
He's a cerebral quarterback.
Yeah,
Okay,
but he's not just
this
the
is why
best
I'm
white
asking,
quarterback.
what is going to be the definitive, give me an idea of when affirmative action you think would be okay to get rid of. Let's say I don't know how many children you have, if you have any children, but
No.
you came from a wealthy family right now. You admitted that you came from a wealthy family. So
No. I said I came from the 1% of black communities, meaning that my parents graduated college. They were still together my whole life. I was raised in Cerritos, but it wasn't wealthy. I grew up in a solid middle class home.
I mean,
I'm saying solid middle class. Went to Artesia High School.
So, do you feel that with your kids having a potential middle class to upper class lifestyle now, would you be okay with saying, kids, don't put down that you're black on college applications?
I mean, my kid wouldn't have to do that anyway.
Why?
Because my kid is going to get in based off of his merits. My kid has the. So then just tell them, don't put down that you're black. Just tell them that then. No, I'm saying, but my kid has like the merits, and that's like saying like saying not to have a kid from the 80s put on the application that they're white when it's an inherent advantage. That's just silly.
It's an inherent advantage when
in the in the 70s and 80s, you're not going to tell me, like, we don't have to argue about white privilege today. All right. But can't we agree that there was white privilege in the 50s and 60s? Can we agree with that?
Sure, I guess. But when is that going to burn off?
Man, when those effects are done. Like, bro, like you'll tell me in one argument about disrespecting the flag and what our military does and da. But then on another account, I'll be able to tell you that my dad served in Vietnam. He was poisoned in Vietnam. He got the Purple Star and all kind of stuff over in Vietnam. Yet on his way out to go to Vietnam and on his return to Vietnam in Georgia, he was hit with racism at a church of all places, right? So when you hit me with those things, you have to understand that there's still a greater context to what's going on. You can't just pin it to 2017, right? Like we're all effects of what's going on before that got us here.
Okay.
So that's why I'm asking, When, like, in what parameter is it going to be? Hey, guess what? Racism's over, folks. We're all cool. What is that going to be? When is that going to be?
I would say it's probably going to take like another 2 or 3 generations.
So you mean to tell me, okay, just to be sure, so if your kids are middle class to wealthy,
My kid,
right?
hold on, my
In,
kids are still in the 1%.
okay, 1% of what? Just your race? That's
Black,
it?
yes, yeah, black communities.
Okay, so
Like my family structure,
that kind of makes no sense because I mean, like, let's be clear. There's a lot of really really rich black celebrities out there. Are you saying that your family's part of their?
I have some really rich family members in my immediate fam. Yeah.
Okay, so
All
then
right.
for all of the children, oh, wait. So for all of their children that will have enough money to afford college, do you feel it's also fair that they receive preferential treatment on their admissions?
Again, you're saying, do I feel that it's like they won't receive any preferential treatment because it won't be
Bullshit.
deemed? Okay,
Fucking shit.
Okay, so in the 60s, was a white guy getting preferential treatment?
No, today, Jordan, today.
Right,
I asked you today.
Right, and you, the same spirit of you in the 50s would be like, yo, man, you're free now, right? Like,
No,
you're
I'm
free,
asking you
so be
when.
happy.
I'm asking you when, and I'm asking you a specific question. It's yes or no. Do you feel that they should have preferential treatment
Yes.
if they're
Yes.
Oh, so okay. So if you're wealthy and you're black, you should still get preferential treatment.
Yes.
That's what you're saying.
Yes.
You're full of fucking shit.
Hey,
Why?
all right.
You will never give it up. You're always going to play for your own group, and you know that. You always know that.
Yes.
That's what you just said.
Yes.
That's what you just said. So you're telling me that the black kid from a wealthy family should get preferential treatment for some white family that came from slavery, because the Slavs literally came from slavery. They've been poor their whole fucking lives, came to America, we're still fucking poor, trying to get up. You're saying that they should not have any preference. They should literally be held against their own fucking race.
Sorry,
That's what you're saying. You're saying, oh, no, you did, sir. You absolutely fucking did. Because I asked you if your family is rich and they're black, that they receive preferential treatment for being black.
Yes, they should.
That's exactly what I fucking told you.
Yes, that's what
Travis, I don't want to fucking talk to this guy anymore because he plays his own in-group, and we already know this. He's trying to say that we should all be fucking fair. He's telling us we should all be fucking fair, and he's saying they should still get preferential treatment. That's full of shit.
Hey,
you're full of shit.
You just want to be fair today.
Why would somebody that's wealthy need preferential treatment?
Hold on, but why do you guys just want to talk about today? What's the problem with talking about yesterday? Because you understand.
Because you're not comfortable with this, and that's why the point is.
Your grandparents said the same thing in the 50s. Like, let's not talk about slavery.
You know my grandparents? You know my grandparents.
I'm assuming that they're intelligent like you, Matthew.
All right, we're gonna have
do they share the same intellect?
We have to cut this off due to time constraints on my physical. My physical ability to post these things needs to be less than an hour and 40 minutes. But I feel like this is a conversation that needs to continue. It's tough. It's tough to talk about these things without being riled up. There's a lot of emotion involved. There's a lot of history. There's a lot of stuff to get to. It's not black and white. I guess that was a bad analogy. There's a lot of gray areas to speak on.
There's a lot of brown area.
There's some brown areas. There's some yellow areas. There's some poor white people areas. I'm just kidding. I appreciate both of you for coming on. Due to time restraints, it's better for me to cut it off now. And maybe let's regroup and do this thing in a couple of weeks again. Jordan, would you be down?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Let's revisit it in a couple of weeks.
Matthew, would you be down?
And if we get Dusty back,
not a problem. Anytime, anywhere.
You guys did a pretty good job of letting each other talk. And Jordan, I felt like you cut Dusty off, and it pissed him off.
Dusty wanted to run. Matthew doesn't want to run.
All right. I would not agree with that, but you are definitely entitled to your opinion. So, in closing, I mean, did we make any progress? Did anybody learn anything here?
We didn't figure racism out in America today. Damn it!
What?
I said we didn't figure out like how to solve racism in America today.
No, but no, so
Damn.
we're not going to do that. But we can, climb up that Mount Everest maybe an inch at a time or a foot at a time, and to where basically we can come to a place of understanding because we are all so divided right now, and I feel like that's a huge problem. And sometimes we just need to yell a little bit, and that's healthy too, you know. But not for the whole thing. And I feel like we did all right. We're not gonna. Hey, look, we're not changing anyone's mind here, but maybe just trying to understand a little bit is something that's could be beneficial moving forward. With that said, Matthew, are you have you pulled your hair out over there, or are you still
Oh no, I've learned a lot tonight.
hopefully some positive stuff. And
Yeah,
Jordan,
plenty actually.
thank you for I know you're running late. Something must have happened.
Yeah.
That's not so. Thank you for coming. We got to do it again. You are a great sparring partner for anybody, and it's not a fight, but I just use that as an analogy, and analogies usually don't work that good. But yeah, I mean, you're great. You're great. I love to hear what you have to say, and I don't feel like you're wrong for a lot of. I mean, you ain't wrong. Maybe I don't agree, but you can't say that we're wrong with a lot of the stuff that we say.
I don't think that you guys are wrong at all. And that's what I started, off the whole thing by saying, is that the problem is that we spend time talking about the nuances of it, and we, for the most part, agree with the things today, and we spend more of the times disagreeing on that stuff instead of figuring out like how, if he would have let me finish, so like how we weed out the wealthy from the underprivileged, because otherwise we don't have any way to give the benefits to the people that actually need the benefits.
Definitely, you did paint. You did start the canvas by painting it off that exact way. Okay, so we'll revisit in a couple weeks. Coming up, we have a post-election recap. No, it's been a while since we talked about the election, so we're gonna do that again. I think that'll be out next week. Coming up down the line, we've got a couple guests lined up. Nothing for sure yet, but the next one should be good. It's going to be a Hillary Clinton bash fest, pretty much, and we're going to talk some shit on the current president too. So, anyways, this has been Mercury's Cast. I appreciate both of you for coming on and hanging in there. This is difficult stuff to do, and I just appreciate the hell out of both of you. All right, see you guys later.